And we should mention, like, literally breaking news. I just got a note from Tucker, 10:50, that the Titans have fired their GM, Rand Carthon. So it's obviously something that we'll continue to follow. They fired Robinson, their GM, a handful of years ago as well. So now, like, a change in leadership. So we'll see how that all plays out. But with the 6 of the top 10 teams needing a quarterback, I just keep going back to this, Mensch. It's wildly different every phone conversation I have, whether it's a GM, a former GM, someone who has been in high-ranking official in a personnel department who's now in television or podcasting, an area scout, doesn't matter. Like, the conversations, and this is what's different than most years, the conversations with people in the league are vastly different. In previous years, it's like, I like Stroud a little bit more than I like Bryce Young. Or I think Jaden is the number one prospect at quarterback. And I had those conversations slightly ahead of Caleb, slightly ahead of Drake, right? This year, the difference in the conversation, like, some people I talk to are like, I just don't trust Shedeur and his pocket instincts. You know, what's so special about him? He doesn't have an elite arm. He's not a great runner and just an okay athlete. Like, but then there are other guys who are like, when I watch the tape, it's so clear the progression reads and how fast he's able to read Shedeur Sanders, how fast he's able to go through his progressions, his ability to create, and his instincts as a passer when the initial play breaks down, his touch, his accuracy, layering the ball. So, like, and then with Cam, it's, the offense he's played in, it's progressed, but is he ready for the NFL? Love his traits, physical traits, but the nonchalant stuff, we get a lot to work on with him. He doesn't process as quickly as Shedeur. The conversations are wildly different from one person to the next, and that's, I don't want to say it's absolutely unique, like it's happened before, but it's rare. It doesn't happen a lot. Usually, there's more consistency from one conversation to the next, and I say that with two caveats, or for two purposes. The first is, I was really, I don't want to say surprised, but it was interesting. It was very interesting. That's the best word I can get. Like, it piqued my interest. FanDuel are tremendous supporters here at the McShay Show. FanDuel, I looked up, and you can only in certain states get the draft odds, but FanDuel had Cam Ward at -125, the best odds to be the number one overall pick. Think about that. It's pretty wild. Yeah. And Shedeur Sanders at +105. Not a big gap between the two, neck and neck. But I also am aware that it was Shedeur higher earlier, and with the Titans getting that number one pick. And I've heard this. I haven't talked to anyone in Tennessee, and it wouldn't have mattered because there's going to be a change in leadership there anyway. But it's interesting that all of this buzz about Tennessee, and it's not surprising. I want to take people behind the curtain. Like, I've talked to many organizations after the draft. When did you know that was your guy at quarterback? I think most recently, most famously, talking about Sean Payton with Bo Nix, it was 17 throws into his pro day, right? That's later in the process than where we are. That's in April or late March, okay? I've also talked to Brett Veach and Andy Reid, had very candid conversations with them about Patrick Mahomes. They told me the actual backstory of how Brett was annoying, was annoying Andy Reid and kept was harping on, we got this guy who just finished up, I think it was his freshman year going into his sophomore year. He's our guy. He's our next. And then throughout his sophomore year, wasn't even eligible and was going into Andy's office 3 or 4 times. And Andy finally was like, get out of here. Like, we're talking about like 22 months from now. Like, we got a game to prepare for. And he'd be walking and be like, watch this play, So you make decisions organizationally on who your guy is at different portions, depending on the class, depending on what you fall in love with, at different portions of the process. And so I don't know if there are a lot of people in the Tennessee organization that were clear, it was clear cut. Because top I know one organization about 2 weeks ago, I talked to a scout and he said, yeah, I'm going in early January for top 32 meetings, I think it was, kind of going over the top prospects, whatever, top 32, top 50, whatever it was. So like they're not really even in like definitive meetings yet, but when you know. And so clearly FanDuel, there's information out there that Tennessee likes Cam Ward more than Shedeur Sanders. But now that we're just getting this breaking news. General manager for the Titans, Rand Carthon, fired. So how does that change things? Are the odds going to change in a week or so? So the whole thing's fascinating to me. So that's the first thing that's interesting. And I want to get your opinion and all your thoughts on this. The second thing that's fascinating to me, vast majority of conversations I have with teams, we wouldn't draft this guy in the top 10. We feel bad for teams drafting that need a quarterback in the top 10. This is not the year. It was the year when Stroud and Bryce were there. It was the year last year with, my goodness, 6 guys. Was it 6 guys in the top 12? Yes, 6 guys in the top 12. But this is not the year. And the comparisons have been made with the Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis and, in that class, Will Levis, all that. I think it's, I don't know, it's slightly different, but the concept is there. But almost a lot of people I talk to, Mensch, are like, no. And I just wonder if it's going to be a little bit more like, because we said with Kenny Pickett and Willis and Levis, those guys, quarterbacks climb. They'll go high. And they didn't that year. And I just wonder this year if it will be different than that 2022 class with Pickett and Willis and Levis and Corral and all those guys. Or we'll just see what we normally see. The norm is that quarterbacks rise to the top. So what you got, bud?
I'm leaning towards that. I feel like it's more like the Pickett class. I think teams are going to hold their water a little bit more and maybe take a different...
Okay, but pull up the graphic again. I hear you. I hear you. But so Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants, top 3 picks all need a quarterback. And then right behind them at 6 and 7, Raiders and Jets need quarterbacks.
So there's a couple interesting things to get into here about how I think it's a little narrow-minded to say that the only way you can address that position right now is through the draft. I think there's a few interesting free agents coming out. I think you explore some trade options for some younger guys. I want to ask you this. What would your market be? Would you take a swing on Aaron Rodgers if he's not in a Jets uniform next year?
No.
It's just
not.
The play has fallen off too much. The headache's too much.
It would have to be in August, quarterback injured, we have a playoff roster. That's the only way. Too much of a headache, too much. The interviews, the attention, all the drama that comes with it. And quite frankly, he's shown some flashes in the last few weeks and all of that. And the hope is, if you're Aaron Rodgers or anyone considering it, that the Achilles is more healed.
2 years off.
2 years off. And it very likely will be. And I'm not saying he's ordinary, but without that mobility and the ability to extend, part of what made him so special and arguably the most talented and best quarterback in the league, that argument was there even when Tom Brady was playing at a high level. I don't see it anymore. And I wonder at 41 years old or whatever, does that come back? Depending. I'd much rather bring in someone lesser profile, less money, and take a chance on. And you and I talked about it. I mean, I think you had some names, but like, I'm not banking on like a Zach Wilson or a
Justin
Drew Lock or Justin Fields, but to bring him in and compete if we need him. And a reclamation project. But here's the thing, like we've seen that this never occurred in the NFL.
Right.
The Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold stuff never occurred in the NFL for decades. For as long as we've been in this scouting. It just didn't, it almost never occurred. And we're starting to see more of it. Geno Smith, right? We're starting to see guys go to another place. But you're kind of betting on that they had such a terrible situation where they were. And then with Baker, remember Baker got some time with McVay and that really helped him. And I know it was limited, but he got some time with McVay to kind of reset. And we saw some flashes there. And then Canales did a nice job with him in year 1 and he's taken off. We saw San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan helping with Sam Darnold for a year,
Right.
kind of get him right again. It was like, I always say, like the injured bird, and like nursing him back to health, and then passing him along,
mend the wing. Yeah.
passing him along to it. And they've both gone to places that have been, have had a certain level of commitment to him, but more importantly, could continue that development. Right. It was like outpatient, and I don't think anyone's arguing that Kevin O'Connor is one of the best in the NFL at developing quarterbacks. So you're banking, you've got to have a lot of circumstances that you believe in, and you're mostly banking on that you have the quarterback developer in house to do that. But I do think it will be a part of this offseason.
Here's what I'm saying to you as a GM. I hear the conversation, right? You're talking about you want to win a Super Bowl. You are looking for long-term success. I think the real conversation that we have right now is that there is a lack of talent at the quarterback position right now. And you're looking to bridge a gap until some of these younger college quarterbacks, who I think are, Nico from Tennessee. There's some guys that are going to be coming out. I think they're going to be Raiola from Nebraska.
Bridge a gap, and in the meantime, hope you strike gold.
And be competitive and maybe strike gold, but you're looking to strike gold. I think you're managing your assets differently with that approach. If you're taking a realistic, logical approach to this, you're saying to yourself, do I really want to use a top 5 pick on a quarterback that maybe is going to do well? Or do I want to go after a guy that can make us maybe competitive for the next couple of years and address other holes in my roster? So one, we're in a better position to maybe attract that free agent quarterback later on. And 2, you haven't wasted that high draft pick. You've used it wisely. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So I'll turn it around to you right now. Tennessee just called. They love the pod. They want to hire you as their GM. What are you doing with pick 1 right now?
It depends on what I've been able to do. I'm bringing in a veteran regardless. I don't know if it's Drew Lock.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm bringing in a veteran regardless. I'm doing the same thing Minnesota did.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's not many Sam Darnolds out there. I go back to like Belichick kind of laughing, and I know he says a lot of things in spite when it comes to the Jets, but like he's like, someone asked him, "Are you surprised with Sam Darnold?" He's like, "No." He's like, "In fact, nobody in the league was surprised except the Jets in Carolina."
Couldn't resist the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not wrong. Like he's not wrong, because everyone I talk to in the league, it's like, God, if Sam just had the right coaching and the right things around him, we all know his talent level. So I'm going that route for starters, and then we're diving in on. Honestly, here's my pecking order. We're going out. We're getting a veteran. Okay, I'm making damn sure that we've got a whoever we're hiring as the next. Well, you're the Titans, so you're not. We're going out. We're getting a veteran. Number 1. Number 2, we're shopping that pick. We're seeing what we can get for it. That's priority number 2. Okay. If we don't get anything of value for that pick, because other teams in the league kind of agree with the assessment,
right,
of the top quarterbacks, then you stay there. And now the really tricky part is, do you take a Travis Hunter over a quarterback? I don't think you do. I just don't think you do, because you got to take your cuts. And if you're right back there in the situation a year from now or 2 years from now, then you're right back there. Right. But yeah.
So you're on the clock.
What would you do?
You got jammed. I'll tell you right now, we're on the clock in this situation. We're on the clock. We got jammed. I would take a guy like Abdul Carter. I think you got to start. I think you got to build up front. I think he's the best player in this draft. I think he's the most talented. I would take a guy like Abdul Carter, the edge out of Penn State.
I think a lot of people. I don't disagree. I think a lot of people need to go back and study the organizations that have built from the ground up. San Francisco.
Yeah,
you could have put a handful of quarterbacks in there and had similar success, and that's not taking anything away from Brock Purdy, but they were so damn good because of the way they drafted on the defensive line, the offensive line, then plugged in some skill guys. Detroit Lions offensive line, like they were miserable, they were suffering. Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson. Don't we need a quarterback? Yeah, but there isn't one. There isn't
right.
one. So let's do. I agree with you. Brad Holmes, John Lynch. There's a lot of organizations that you can go back. And actually, I shouldn't say a lot. There's a handful of organizations that have built this thing the right way. Seattle did back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Built this thing the right way. They drafted a quarterback in the third round. It turned out to be Russell Wilson. And he was awesome for several years. But when you build the thing the right way, then you can plug in a quarterback from the third round.
Right.
You plug in Mr. Irrelevant. You can get a retread in Jared Goff that no one believes in. And every year you got to answer questions before and after the draft. If you're Brad Holmes, why didn't you take a quarterback? I don't know why everyone's saying that. Like, we've got our guy. So I don't disagree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel more comfortable doing that and then signing a lock and then maybe targeting Jackson Dart in the middle rounds. So you bring in a guy who maybe you don't love, but you're getting him at a much later point in the draft and who could be a decent player going forward. I'll say this too, because I'll go on the record right now. If you're telling me we're taking a quarterback, like Mensch, we're taking a quarterback, which one are you going with? I'm still going with Sanders, but that gap has closed. I feel like Sanders over the last 5 or 6 games, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if he's playing it safer, not pushing the ball downfield, some of the hits that he's taking, even like weird stuff. Like I'm watching him on tape and he's got opportunities to get out of bounds and he's kind of being a little lackadaisical when he gets to the sideline. He ends up taking a hit because of it. The unnecessary contact for a guy who's that big, who's going to be playing against much bigger and stronger men for more games, it does scare me. There are some things that are popping out about Sanders. And I thought, if you'd asked me a month ago, I was very comfortable saying that Sanders was clearly the number one. I think Ward has definitely closed that gap. Still going with Sanders over Ward, but it's going to be an interesting pre-draft process.
Yeah, it's the traits of Cam Ward,
right?
The very clearly he's got a stronger arm, like the arm angles. Neither is a great runner. But I think Cam can extend with a little bit more athletic ability, a little bit more strength. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a fun draft lead up.
Who you got right now?
It kind of depends on who I am. If I've got a team that can protect and a coach that can continue to with both, I need a coach that can develop. If I've got a team that I think we've built our offensive line and can protect, I think I'm going with Shedeur. I think I don't want to say safer, but I know what I'm getting. I think I know he's a better pure passer in terms of layering the ball, ball placement, all those things. Cam is a little bit more of a project, but he's got better tools. And so that's where I am on that. All right. This is fun. It's kind of just, I don't want to say an appetizer, but we're warming up and we're getting there. A couple weeks, this is going to be full-blown NFL draft, and I'm fired up for it. Like, never before have I or we had the platform to actually do what we do. The behind the scenes, the grunt work, the all-star games, the combine, the tape watching, like 4, 5, 6 hours on every single player, 256 draft picks, 400 prospect evaluations. We got so much stuff that we can finally go through. When I was at my last spot for 15, 16 years, we were lucky to get to player 50 in the draft. We're going to get to so much more. Dive in. We've it's just a better opportunity and better platform, I should say, for diving into more rather than just focusing week in and week out on the top quarterbacks, top skill guys. We've got a lot to cover, and I'm fired up for it, and I know you are too.